This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
All right, well, this is the second lecture on Chapter 8 of the Paper P1 lecture notes. In the first lecture, I explained planning and operational variances. In this lecture, I want to explain what we mean by mix and yield variances and how we calculate them. And before we look at a proper example, just to explain what the problem is, let me just write up a little picture. You don't need to take this down, it's just to try and explain where we're going. There's a rather nice fruit juice that I like, which is a mixture of juices. It's actually strawberry and banana, and they mix together. And suppose we produce that fruit juice. Maybe our standard costs, maybe to make 10 litres of fruit juice, maybe they put 4 litres of banana and 6 litres of strawberry. Doesn't matter what they are. But they mix it together, so for every 10 litres, it's part banana, part strawberry. And suppose the cost per litre for banana is $5 and the cost per litre for strawberry is $8. So in total, for banana, there's $20, $48 for strawberry. So in total, it's costing $68. Now, suppose that was our standard cost card. So every 10 litres of this mixed juice we make should cost us 68. What can go wrong? You know, this is still variances, so we're still going to be looking at did we spend more, did we spend less, that sort of thing. 3 things could go wrong. One thing that could go wrong, very obviously, is that although we thought banana was going to cost $5 and strawberry $8, oh, I don't know, maybe banana we end up paying 6, maybe strawberry we end up paying 7. So there'll be a variance. And you'll see when we come to calculate it, we'll do normal expenditure variance. Maybe we spent too much, too little, no problem. What else can go wrong though? We expected to use 4 litres of banana and 6 litres of strawberry for every 10 litres. Maybe for whatever reason, we only use 4 litres of strawberry. And of course, if we're only using 4 litres of strawberry juice, we're going to have to use more of banana. And you see, even if we paid the right prices, if you use more of one and automatically, therefore, less of the other, it's going to affect the overall cost. The usage has changed. And so we're going to look at that as well, usage variance. Although it is going to be a bit silly saying, oh, hasn't the strawberry man done well? We've used less strawberry. And hasn't the banana man done badly because we've used too much banana? The two go together. You know, automatically, because we're mixing the juices together, automatically, if you use more of one, immediately you must be using less of the other. And so we need to look at the two together, and we call it a mix variance, as you'll see. One other thing can go wrong though, even if we paid the right prices, even if we did mix in the right way, we intended to do 4 of one, 6 of the other, and we did. It could be that perhaps we waste some, or perhaps we boil it and some of the juice disappears as steam. And that in fact, maybe what actually happens is instead of 10 litres coming out, maybe only 9 come out. And of course, if we lose any, if we waste any, whatever, then again, we've lost money, there's a variance. And as you'll see, we call that the yield variance. So that's the sort of thing we're looking at. It's rather specialised. I mean, there aren't many products where you're actually mixing together in this way. Lots of products use more than one material. You know, a desk uses wood and uses metal, but they're two separate things, and you deal with them separately. Wood, I've used too much, too little. Metal, I've used too much, too little. But here, when you're mixing something together, it's a rather specialised situation. Again, if we use more banana, we automatically use less strawberry and vice versa. So there aren't that many things it applies to. I like my juice example. I remember one example in one exam. It wasn't a CIMA exam, that was another one. But they had one of these, and it was actually a drug they were making. A medicine drug. And I thought that was rather funny, because, I mean, the arithmetic was as I'm about to go through. But I think if you're making a juice, you know, and you put more banana and less strawberry, all right, it might taste a bit different, but that's all. If you're actually making a medicine drug, oh, let's put a bit more of this and a bit less of that. And I think it's rather more concerning than what the variances are. Anyway, that's where we're going. Let's work through an example. It's exercise 3. Got a nice little example of it. There's different ways people do the workings. That's up to you. There's only one right answer. But they do the workings in different ways. I'll do it the way I prefer. I think it's the better way. It's certainly, I think, easier to remember, but that's your choice. Have a look with me. The standard material cost per unit of a product is as follows. So we've 2 materials, X, 2 kilos, well, you can read it yourself, 2 kilos of X, 1 kilo of Y, and in total it should cost $8 per unit. The actual production during the period was 5,000 units, and the materials we actually used 9,900 of X through 5,300 of Y, and that's what we spent. Well, let's go step by step. In the exam, clearly only do whatever's asked for. We're going to do everything here. Let's first of all work out the total variance. So forget any analysis for the moment, we'll come to that later. But in total, did we spend too much? Did we spend too little? Well, the actual total cost on X we spent 27,000. On Y we spent 11,000. So an actual total of 38,000. However, if everything had gone perfectly, how much should we have spent? The standard cost for the actual production we actually produced 5,000 units. From the cost card, each unit in total should have cost $8, and therefore we expected to spend 40,000. And therefore, overall, we've saved 2,000. It's 2,000 favourable. However, we need to analyse, and why did that happen? Again, there are 3 possible reasons. It could be that we paid the wrong prices per kilo. X should have been $3 a kilo. If we pay $4 a kilo, there's a variance. It could have been because we mixed in the wrong way. We should have used 2 kilos of X, 1 kilo of Y for every unit. If I used more of one and less of the other, the overall cost would be different, would be a variance. And finally, I could have wasted some. You see, in total, every unit should need 3 kilos of material. 2 of x, 1 of y. Well, we need to check, did we use 3 kilos of material for every unit? Did we use more? Did we use less? If we did, there's a variance. So let's look at them one by one. I said a minute ago, how you do your workings is your choice. In some places you can perhaps take shortcuts. I'll do it the way I like. I think it's the most logical. And as you'll see as I go through, I do it in a sense as a little table. But first of all, we'll look at the price or expenditure variance. And effectively the same way we always do it, the way we do it in basic variances, we take our actual purchases at actual cost. So you'll see in a minute, I'll do it in columns, but we compare it with what we should have spent, actual purchases at standard cost. So let's write it down. How much did we buy? Well, in kilos, x, y. We bought 9,900 kilos of x, 5,300 of y. How much should we have paid? Well, x, we should have, how much, I beg your pardon, actual cost. What was the actual cost? Well, it's given us the totals. X, we paid 27,000, y, we paid 11. So it actually cost in total 38,000. For expenditure variance, we compare that with what we should have paid. Our actual purchases again, 9,900 x, 5,300 of y. And had we paid the right price, x, we should have paid $3 a kilo. So in total, that's what? 29,700. Y, we should have paid $2 a kilo, total 10,600. And so for our actual purchases, had we paid the right price, the standard cost, it would have been 40,300. So we should have paid 40,300, we only paid 38,000. The difference is our price or expenditure variance. The difference is what? 2,300. And which way? It's favourable. We pay less than we would have expected to pay. Okay, so no problem. Nice and straightforward. The reason I'm a bit arrogant, the reason I like my layout is although normally we just ask for the figure in total, if you were asked to split it between the two materials, there's no extra work to be done. You know, x, we spent 27, it should have been 29,700, so a variance of 2,700 favourable, the difference. For y, individually, we spent 11, we should have spent 10,600, there with an adverse 400. Alright, that's expenditure. So we can now forget that, forget we paid the wrong prices. From now on, even if we'd paid the correct prices, the standard costs, what else went wrong? Well, the next one we look at is the mix variance. Now again, I'm going to do it in columns. But what we're going to do is we're going to compare our actual mix with, as you'll see in a minute, the standard mix for the actual total purchases. Now let me explain with figures what I mean. What did we actually buy? X, we bought 9,900 kilos. Y, we bought 5,300. And so in total, we bought 15,200 kilos. That's what we actually bought in total. So we bought 15,200, and that's how we mixed between X and Y. But how should we have been mixing? If you look at the cost card, for every unit in total, there's 3 kilos. And 2 of them should have been material X. 1 of them should have been material Y. So we bought in total 15,200. That's our actual total purchases. But how should we have split it between X and Y? Again, from the cost card, for every 3 in total, 2 of them should have been X. So 2/3 of our total should have been X. And 1 kilo out of 3, 1/3 of the total should have been Y. So the way we should have mixed them, 2/3 of 15,200, it doesn't divide nicely. I should have chosen nicer figures, but still. I'm not really about a bit of a rounding. 10,133. There should have been that many kilos of X. And 1/3, or 5,067, there should have been that many kilos of Y. Now I hope that you're clear where those figures came from. For every 3 kilos in total, it should have been 2X, 1Y. As it turned out, of course, what's happened, we bought fewer X's than we should have done, but automatically we've bought more Y's. Think back to my strawberry and banana. Less of one, more of the other. We need to know the effect that on its own that would have had on our costs. Well, in both cases, we cost at standard cost. We've dealt with the expenditure variance, I'm no longer interested, we cost at standard. And so, the way we purchased our mix, it should have been $3 a kilo for X, 2 for Y. And so, our mix at standard cost would have cost us 4,300. How much would it have cost us if we'd have mixed the right way? Again, at standard cost, $3, $2. 33.99 and 10,134. I think that's right. 5067 times 2 in total. 40,533. So what's happened? How do we mix the right way? Those kilos would have cost us 40,533. We mixed it differently, and it would have only cost us it actually only cost us 4,300. So it saved us money. Our mix variance, the difference 233, favourable. And make sure you make sense of it. You know, the exam's not just numbers. What's happened? X was the expensive one. We bought fewer X's, so we were saving on X's. But automatically, therefore, we were forced to buy more Y's. We're spending more on Y's. But because we've switched, it's less of the expensive and more of the cheap one. Overall, it saved us money. If we'd gone the other way, if we bought more of X, the expensive one, and less of Y, then it would have cost us money. All right, one left. We dealt with price, so I'm no longer interested in price. Everything's at standard now. I've dealt with mix, so I'm no longer interested in that as a problem. But the one remaining problem we need to look at is this. Even if we'd mixed in the right way and paid the right prices, we need to check, in total, did we use the right amount of material? You know, in total, every unit should have taken 3 kilos. Did we use 3 kilos a unit? Or did we use more, waste? Or did we use less? We need to check. And we call this the yield variance. And what we do is this. Again, I'm going to do columns, so let me head them up and see the logic and then learn it. First of all, we take the actual total purchases and we're going to compare it with the standard total purchases for the actual production. And as you'll see, in both cases, we're going to do it at standard mix because we've dealt with the mix problem. And when it comes to costing it, in both cases, it'll be at standard cost because we've dealt with the expenditure variance. Now, it's more obvious with the figures, but how many did we buy in total? What were our actual total purchases? It was 15,200 kilos. And how should we have mixed it? If we'd mixed it the right way, it should have been 2/3 should have been X, 1/3 Y. And of course, I've already done the work for that. 10,133 and 5067. 5,000 or what was it? 5067. So that's the total we bought, mixed the right way. How much should we have bought for our actual production? Look back at the cost card. For every unit we produce, we should be using 3 kilos in total. And so, for 5,000 units, sorry, I don't do. For 5,000 units, in total, we should have used 15,000 kilos. So immediately know we have an adverse variance here. We've used more in total than we should have done. We used 15.2, it should have been 15. And of course, had it been mixed in the right way, 2/3 would have been X, 1/3 Y. It should have been 10,000 X's and 5,000 Y's. We need to cost it clearly to get the variance. We cost at standard cost $3 and $2 in both cases. Actual total purchases, standard mix, comes to 33.99 and 10,134. Total actually, you probably realised, you see, this is another reason I like the way I set it out. is we'd already done all that work here in the previous variance. You know, we got the mix, we'd costed it at 45.33, so you don't actually need to rewrite it all in your workings. However, actual production standard mix would have cost what? 30,000, 10,000, 40,000. And so, had we used the right total quantity, we'd have spent 40. We used a bit more as a result, 45.33, and therefore the yield variance, the difference of 533, and it's adverse. We spent more than we should have done. And before I summarise, just to make sense of it, or I hope all that made sense, we said from the very beginning, we should, if everything went perfectly, we'd have used 2 kilos, 1 kilo for every unit. We'd have paid $3 and $2. We'd have paid 40,000. What went wrong? First thing that goes wrong is we used more in total than we should have done. The yield variance, by using those extra 200 kilos, that on its own cost us 533 extra. We'd have paid 45.33. So why wasn't that the end of it? Because it's 45.33 if we mix properly. We changed the mix. We had more of Y and less of X. That saved us 233. So why didn't we pay 40,300? Well, it's 40,300 at standard cost. We actually paid a different amount per kilo. As a result, we paid 38,000. We had our expenditure variance. Let me just summarise and make one last point. If I list the variances, the expenditure variance was 2,300 favourable. The mix variance was 233 favourable. The yield variance was what? 533 adverse. And therefore the net total variance is 2,000 favourable, which I think you're not in a position to know this anyway, it's extracts, but I think that's what we got at the very start. Yes, in total we saved 2,000. We've now analysed how we arrived at that saving. Just one last thing. The mix and the yield variance both relate to usage. Mix, you're using less of one, more of the other. Yield, you're using more or less of both of them. Well, these two together are called the usage variance. You can work it out separately, there's absolutely no need. The usage variance. And so here the two together is what? 233, 530. It's 300 adverse is usage. So expenditure 233 favourable, usage 300 adverse, but there's the full analysis. Okay, let's leave that one there.